Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to the Future History Project. And we're continuing with Isaac Asimov's Robot City, and this is Robot City, Robots and Aliens, Book 1, called Changeling by Stephen Leigh. Interesting cover. Now, these have, as the Robot City volumes all had, were introductions by Isaac Asimov, and the outlines were created by Asimov and then given to the authors. Now, the introductions are quite interesting. This one, very much so, because Asimov talks about why there are generally no aliens in his stories. Especially the Foundation universe and the Future History universe. Now, and he says that, he explains this, and he says the time is 1940. I'll read from the a few places of the introduction here, which is very interesting. In those days, it was common to describe galactic federations in which there were many, many planets, each with its own forms of intelligent life. E. Doc Smith had started the fashion, and John W. Campbell carried it on. There was, however, a catch. Smith and Campbell, though wonderful people, were of Northwest European extraction, and they took it for granted that Northwest Europeans and their descendants were the evolutionary crown and peak. Neither one was a racist in any evil sense, you understand, but were as kind and as good as gold to everyone, but they knew they belonged to the racial aristocracy. That's a very interesting comment there, I find, because John W. Campbell has been reevaluated and found lacking for racist qualities among other not good virtues. But it's interesting that Asimov says that he's not race, because there is obviously different levels of racism. Thinking that you're from a superior line of people and the others are not intellectually better, that still is technically racism. But obviously there are different levels of racism, and Asimov is qualifying here in his statements that he, like John W. Campbell and E. Doc Smith, weren't of the type that would want, eradication of another race. That's what he's saying. It's just an interesting thing, and I think a lot of times throughout things that are happening today, especially in the 21st century, that people just, it's either black or white. Things are never really black and white. There's always shades. I found that interesting. But anyway, and then he goes on to say that he would wonder what a robot would do, finding an alien. How would it sort of not contact, but because the laws of robotics say must not harm a human, must take orders from a human unless it violates law number 1, and then law number 3 is to protect your own existence unless it conflicts with the first 2 laws. So he sort of wonders what would happen with that. So he's created, this series with the outlines. And there's also another really cool thing here. It says, like he says, he never really put aliens in, and he said this continued even after Campbell's death. And now I can't think of a recent robot story in which my robot isn't far better than the human beings he must deal with. I think of Bicentennial Man, Robot Dreams, Too Bad, and most of all, I think R. Daniel and R. Giscard in my robot novels. Now, this was because he was saying that, Campbell would sort of would be okay with humans being superior to robots, but he's saying that in his stories that he thinks the robots can be superior to humans in certain cases. And but the decision I made in the heat of World War II and in my reassessment of Campbell's assumptions have stayed with me. My galaxy is still all human, and my robots still meet only humans. This doesn't mean that, and then in bracket he says, always assuming I live long enough. It's not possible I may violate this habit of mine in the future. The ending of my novel, Foundation on Earth, makes it conceivable that in the sequel I may introduce aliens that our Daniel will have to deal with. That's not a promise, because actually I haven't the faintest idea of what's going to happen in the sequel, but it's at least conceivable that aliens may intrude on my close-knit human societies. Now, that would have been nice. Because he does, well, we're not there yet, but anyway, it's one of those things that would have been nice to see where he would have taken it as a sequel to Foundation on Earth. Anyway, back to this story, Changeling. And it starts out with a synopsis, like a prologue of the 6 Robot City books. And then we start out with Dr. Anastasi, who actually turns out to be Derek's mother. And she is out sort of seeding the galaxy with some robots made of dionite, which is the same material that other than the positronic brain, but it's cased in a dionite casing, and it's the same material that's the Robot City is made, that it can change and morph. It's actually a low grade robot that it can change these things. So she's seeding it out there, but she's only putting basic information with the positronic brain. It's the 3 laws, but not defining what a human is. And it's supposed to, when it lands on a planet, the little ship that it's in, or egg as it's referred to later, sort of finds a planet that's it's very limited, but it finds a planet that is good and lands, and then releases the robot. And this is what happens in this case. This robot comes to a planet and finds wolf-like creatures that are intelligent. They have prehensile hands. They do walk on 4s, but they can go up on 2 hind legs occasionally. They do have weapons. They do modify things. And the robot learns the language, becomes their leader, and it thinks of itself as a human, or they're human, so he's got to obey them and protect them. Then we switch, before we get too far into that, we switch back to Aurora, where Derek and Ariel is, but she's using Catherine. The name she's using there is not her real name, Ariel Welsh, but Catherine Ariel Burgess. Katie, or Kate. So she's back as Kate, I guess, in here. No explanation why. But they're a couple. And it appears, which seems a little weird, but it appears that the knowledge, or they become celebrities because the knowledge of Robot City is out. At least on Aurora, which I assume with all the spacer worlds and possibly Earth. Which they don't say how this is impacting anything, but he still has contacts through these chemfets that are in his body that he can contact the central computer. But as we found out at the end of the series before, a few, like Dr. Avery, escaped, but also some of the robots escaped, and we're going to start Robot City somewhere else. So Derek gets a distress signal from a distance stating that they're being attacked. he can't contact the central computer. Like he receives information, but when he sends information, they don't acknowledge and send back. So he decides to go out there, and Ariel, Kate, doesn't want him to. So there's a rift there. So he leaves with Mandelbrot, the robot, and to go to this location. And Walruff, the sort of wolfish type alien that has been their comrade for all through the 5 books, I guess it is, of Robot City, is non-existent. She's mentioned occasionally, but does not make an appearance. There's no explanation of where she is. I'll get to her in a little bit because I wanted to talk about her as a character, but I wanted to wait to see how she was dealt with in here. But I'll deal with that a little bit later in the video here. But anyway, so he goes. They have a rift, but she decides to follow him, and she's sort of out of the picture for the rest of the book. We don't know what's happened to her. She just, even when Derek's trying to contact her later, there's no answer, and nobody knows where she is. But anyway, they crash land on this planet. Mandelbrot is damaged, but so is Derek. He's got a broken arm and bruises everywhere. And they've crash land quite far from the city, so they have to walk to the city. And as they go, they are attacked by these creatures, these wolf creatures. The Mandelbrot thinks that they're intelligent and doesn't want to harm them, and thinks they should be treated with the first law. And Derek is not sure, but they do get attacked, and they do find out that, because they have modified tools, that they are intelligent. So he wants to do that, but they do attack. He mistakenly kills a younger one, and he feels bad about that. But they do come across some hunter robots that are being attacked by the group, and basically at the same time, this other robot that has landed there has morphed into, like, it's a shape-shifting changeling, as the title is, robot. So it's one of these wolf-like creatures there. But it goes, and it knows in the city it can hear the central computer, and he calls it Central, and saying that's the leader, so he's going to go and destroy it. So he shapeshifts into a hunter, goes into the city, destroys the computer, but the computer, before it fully dies, has allocated 3 other supervisor robots to take over the control of the city. But this is happening, and she flees. It's considered a feminine robot, but they're not exactly. I don't see any reason for that, but she's a she. And they, like Derek and Mandelbrot, get taken into the city and find out what's happening, and then he's saying, "Don't," he then gets contact back with the city, and with the like they're rebuilding the computer, so there's a bit of connection there, and he's connected to the other robots. It says, treat them as human, don't do this, because they want to get this rogue robot. They don't know what's happening there, and so there's a few battles, and the rogue robot wants to kill Derek because it thinks he's the leader, and the robot doesn't view him as human until in the last sort of battle that they have. He says, "I'm human. You can't do this," and it's conflicted. It doesn't understand, and then finally it decides to leave the wolf pack and go to the city and learn, and that's basically where the story ends. But prior to that, when there is the battle and they still haven't been able to communicate properly with these creatures, these wolf creatures. They think him and Mandelbrot realize, well, they need uh, uh, Woolruff, because she is similar to them and may understand their thinking better. So he finally sends a message back to Ariel to say, get Woolruff, contact her, and have her come out here, and you come with her, and I'm sorry, I love you, and all that. And the only one that answers, she's not there. I like the name of the robot that's there. His name is Balzac. Is the house robot that gets the um, message, but it's conflicted because obviously Ariel, Kate, had said, don't reply to anything that Derek has done. So after time of discussion, Derek is able to break down this barrier, and then he's trying, the robot's trying to get a hold of Ariel, but they can't. They don't know where she is, and he says, well, he will contact Woolruff, but he doesn't know where. How can I do this? And he doesn't tell the robot where Woolruff is, so the robot can contact Woolruff. So it's a little uneven with that, and also too that like obviously, like it almost seems like the author had looked at a textbook of sort of anthropology of early primitive societies, and sort of built around for this religion and everything of these alien creatures, which I guess that's okay, but it just seems there's a lot of fluff again with the stuff. It's 150 pages, but it's about 100 and actually probably 35, 40 pages, because a lot of the chapters end with a blank bit of a page, and then the next chapter starts. So it's probably like 100. It's less than 140 pages long, but there's still a lot of fluff with that. The parts with Mandelbrot and Derek were really good when that was happening, but all this lead up of page after page of the rogue robot, with these aliens, it just seemed too much. It just didn't really hold together for me. But anyway, going back to Woolruff, I thought that was an interesting character in the Robot City, because this is an alien. Because again, this is the first time that humans have actually seen aliens as well. So this is the very first time. Now, and she's helped them escape from the tyrant that they were on the spaceship with, and she obviously is intelligent. She can fly any ship, can do all this because it's showing, but it's as if she's just sort of dragged along and shoved in the corner, and then went, oh, we need something, okay, we'll pull her out and do this because we've got her here, so let's use her in the story for a little bit, like a little bit of a hand puppet type thing, which seems a bit weak for the authors to do that, because I think she's an interesting character that could have been developed a lot more, and I was hoping there'd be a lot more development in here. Maybe maybe it will happen, but it just I thought she was an interesting character, and they just didn't do much with it. It just seemed that she was just sort of tacked on, and then the author goes, oh yeah, I've got this character here, let's bring her in now for this little bit, and then push her to the side again. But anyway, that's pretty good, and I haven't really dealt much with the authors of these, because most of them I've never heard of, but this is Stephen Leigh, and I'll read most of the little bio here. It says, Stephen Leigh is the author of several science fiction novels, including Crystal Memory, The Bones of God, the Newton trilogy, and the first book in the Dr. Bones series. He is also a contributing author to the Hugo nominated Wild Cards Shared World anthologies, and has had several pieces of short fiction in such markets as Analog, Isaac Asimov Science Fiction Magazine, and various anthologies. His current project is an offbeat contemporary fantasy novel entitled The Abraxas Marvel Circus. And he just says that he's married, has 2 children, and he's also employed by Kelly Services as an office automation manager. I think Kelly Services used to be in Canada. They had that, and I think it was a an office, or well, actually not just office work, but a temporary agency where if you needed a job or wanted a job just occasionally or work for a week or something like that, and a company needed somebody to fill in or an extra person, they would go to Kelly Services. And I certainly, when I was younger, had jobs provided through them. I believe that's what that is. And if I didn't mention, this was published in 1989. So the next book, off the top of my head, I can't remember what the next book is, because it's not listed here, I don't think. But I'll be reading the next book, and hopefully on Thursday I'll have the video out for that. So, yeah, it was enjoyable. Again, it's like, you know, the authors, I don't think, are really working hard. It just they're sort of, you know, filling in the gaps, basically, with things, and nothing really special that pops out of this really so much. It's just Asimov, I guess, just, you know, exploring the possibility of aliens, but he's already done that in the Robot City with Walworth. So that's where I'm hoping Walworth will come back and have a bigger role in this. And I hope also, too, that my hope is that it doesn't just, they're not stuck again for 6 books or 5 more books on this new Robot City dealing with these other aliens that are there. That will really be fluffing it out, you know. There are definitely other, you know, robots that got away and are apparently starting up robot cities. So there might be a little more, and hopefully it's not just this anthropological sort of checklist of early primitive sort of human societies, but put on an alien society, and that's disappointing. But again, not unexpected for something like this, because it's just, you know, the author's hired to do a job, fill in the blanks, and write a book, you know, and not sweat it too much. And that's what this is. And it was enjoyable for what it is. That's what I say. So if anything more, it'll be a pleasure and really nice to see. So, but yeah, so I'll see you next time, Book 2. Take care.